And we should point that out.
That would have been, yeah, because it's not like.
What's that?
I started.
I get it, that's how I am. You want to take along the test. Good morning, so we're gonna get going. Good morning, everyone. It's June 10th, 2025. It's our non-board briefing meeting. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. And we are gonna go ahead and get started because we have a busy morning. So Preston.
Well, I'll actually let Devin kind of introduce this as he's been working on it in the background as well, so.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, just a few brief comments before I turn it over to my colleagues on the technical side. For your consideration today, we have a resolution that'll be on the docket this afternoon at 2 o'clock. It's approving the indemnification provisions in the letter of agreement with Assistance Dogs Northwest. There's indemnification provisions that Dan Gadd, Risk Management, has signed off on. And so it'll be on your docket at 2 o'clock, but I wanted Chief Criminal Deputy Preston McCollum and the victim witness advocate Kelly Clausen to talk about the program and what the prosecutor's office does.
So thank you very much for having us here. I think it's rare that we get to come and share a lot of great news, but this is really good news for our office, for the community, for our crime victims. Kelly Clausen is an advocate in our special victim unit, so an SAU, our special assault unit. And she has graciously agreed to be the sponsor and host for our new therapy dog, our witness dog. And so she has been, will be providing a home for, I guess, O'Malley, but his nickname on campus for folks that are not issuing him commands is George. So George is with us today. He's a black lab, about 3 years old. So I am gonna have Kelly maybe walk him around the room and introduce him. This is a program that is made possible statutorily under RCW 1052-110. It allows us and allows courts to engage and have a therapy or witness dog to provide comfort to witnesses and crime victims. It's been found that having a dog like this has a huge impact on providing comfort and alleviating trauma, especially in children. And so Callie works in a unit where they have a lot of child victims and child witnesses. So this is an exceptional opportunity to provide comfort in those situations. So Callie and her husband, Scott, have been working a lot as they get up every morning and prepare O'Malley for the day. They do the teeth brushing and the brushing his coat, getting him all ready for the court. And what's great is watching Callie walk around campus, you just see people that can't help but smile. I mean, even in this room, you're all look a lot happier than I normally see all of you. So we're gonna have to bring O'Malley for every time I speak.
Because he's not showing all of his teeth.
That's right. That's right.
I could use some more comfort animals.
Yes, yes. So I do want to give a special thanks to Ashley Cloud. She was very gracious and helpful through this process and making sure that we were able to clear some of the hurdles to have O'Malley on campus. Thank you, Scott, as well. Team, that's been huge. So we're just very happy about this and excited. And just watching as witnesses, as rough officers and judges just break a smile and look at O'Malley. It's going to do good things here. So it's a very minimal cost to us. The dog was made available through this partnership. They do all of the training, they do all of the purchasing, breeding, and everything of that sort. And so what we're responsible for effectively is food and veterinary bills. And with Callie and her husband Scott being willing to provide the home, we've been very blessed to have this opportunity. So thank all of you for this opportunity. It's going to pay dividends with our crime victims, especially young children. And extremely traumatic situations where we have victims that benefit from having O'Malley present. So I don't know if Callie has any words that she'd like to share. Callie is a very experienced advocate in our special assault unit. She's been the driving force in doing the research and coming and talking to management about what this could do for us and for our crime victims in our community. So like to say anything you may.
Yeah, I've worked with the dogs, not myself, but had them come in when I was in Snohomish County, also here at Lutheran. It's amazing when they walk in the room, how they comfort a victim immediately, but also the staff. Bring them over to Maine and everybody is cooing like we have a brand new baby in the office. Last week we had secretaries on the floor cooing and playing with him, so it was good for us as well. But yeah, it really helps with victims and I think it's do great things for our unit or all units as well.
And when you have a tough day, if Callie's available.
And if anybody wants to have, we walk half hour twice a day. He's supposed to train twice a day. So if anybody wants to, I just demonstrated on her lap one of his tricks. And so he's always available to train with people.
Commissioner Keating?
So, yeah, so Lutheran Community Services used to have a doctor who come in, so is this kind of replacing that, or are you augmenting?
They still do. They have Walker. Walker is there.
Yes.
However, Partners as well had 2 dogs, Tori and Skipper. As of yesterday, Skipper retired. So, you know, we would have been down to only 2 dogs in the county. So now we're back to 3. So, you know, and so if I'm busy, the other 2 dogs are still available to come in if we have need in our courthouse. Cause I still have a full schedule of cases, but he's just another one in the rotation and he's amazing.
Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Good. It was
We
something
still have Walker.
we weren't, doing away with that.
No, Walker's still here and Tori is still here, but Skipper did 10 years and they announced his retirement on Friday. So as of yesterday was his last day of work.
The awesome thing about this is, I mean, this is the first time in our history that we've had a service animal like this in the prosecutor's office. And so other counties have done it. I think Snohomish County,
So much is for quite a while.
I think they're close to 20 years on that as well. And so it's just great to have this type of a resource that we can provide. I've definitely done cases where having a dog like O'Malley present, just it changes everything. You're meeting with a vulnerable victim and they have frankly somebody in the room that they can trust and just don't have to worry about. And that's what O'Malley provides. So thank you all for making it possible. Commissioner French?
So you retired Skipper at 10 years. Is there an age on the dogs when they need to be retired?
It's that usually they work them up to 8 or 10 years is what they have told me. It depends on the dog's health. Skipper was able to go, look, they half retired him a year ago. And so he was on part-time for the last year. But they also told me to, like, let's say O'Malley, let's say I resign in 6 years and he hasn't made it to his 10 years. If I've been his only handler, they would probably let him retire with me. But it's usually 8 to 10 years, depending on the dog's health.
I'm a little concerned because in human years that's 70 and I've exceeded that. So I'm worried that.
He gets a good retirement. And they have to clock in. I don't have the total hours, but they do have to put in an amount of hours too for retirement as well. So that can get them closer to retirement as well.
So Partners still has one,
They have Tori.
so as needed, you'll be able to go over there and help out.
And then, you know, they, even before I got O'Malley, they were coming here and helping us out. But, you know, they have their own caseloads too, so the more we can have.
Is that offered in all the interviews that they do? Do you know, for forensic type
For the
interviews?
forensic, yes, they do offer, they offer the dog in the forensic interviews. And so if they would get overloaded, I would go over and help them just like they've helped us.
Sometimes you might have kids on the same case, right?
And we haven't explored a lot, the courtroom testimony piece. I know in other counties and we've done it here as well, where our SAU prosecutors might have a dog that could, duck down and hide behind the whiskey stand and, not be a distraction to the jury, but that'll be new ground kind of for us to explore as he gets familiar with the courtrooms and we get familiar with the layout. But it's frankly, it's just really exciting to have this, so.
It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Well, thank you very much. I think that, we're happy to see this all.
Thank you.
It's a good start to the day.
Yeah, very good start. Thank
Come
you.
back anytime.
Please come back to the budget. Yeah, we'll need to borrow.
For every budget.
2 hours,
Please.
2 hours every Monday.
Okay, that's gonna take us to Kevin Hutch, and I see we have the sheriff's business as well.
Good morning. I submitted as you know, we applied for the WASPIC BHU co-responder funding that we've done since 2019, I believe. This year they opened it up for more applications, more regions, and they received a lot of applications. And the funding was also cut by the legislature and the governor, so they had less money to give out and they had a lot more people to give it to. So fortunately, we only received, the intent is right now to give us $320,000 for the year one and 300,000 for year two. As opposed to, I think, 1.7 million that we've gotten in the past. So it's a pretty big cut. We've separated from the city of Spokane so we can provide service directly to the unincorporated areas and the jurisdictions that we serve. The city of Spokane is actually receiving the same award that we're receiving. They're getting 320 and 300,000. So it was the remainder of the money to give out was split between the two of us. Our goal is to continue the program, obviously, but we need funding for the deputies. One of the things that WASPIC said is they didn't want to fund law enforcement. They only wanted to fund the co-responders. And so $320,000, I just got the budget this morning, actually, will give us 2 co-responders. And then another 2 the second year, but with a little bit of cuts to some fringe benefits. That being said, the Valley is going to continue funding the one position that they have funded in the past. And so our proposal is to fund 1 position downtown, 1 deputy position, and then also have a shared third position that would be shared between the Valley and the county, but we don't have commitment from the Valley for that yet. And then we'd have 3 co-responders to respond to the county and the Valley, and then all the other small jurisdictions.
To be clear, we're not asking you to increase funding. I know you're not in a position to do it. My intent is I will be taking a body out of patrol. So we will be reducing 1 FTE in the sheriff's office because it is no longer grant funded. And we will be pulling a body off of patrol to serve in that role. I think everybody here agrees having a deputy who is specifically trained to work with a co-responder, with a mental health professional, with all the motivational interview training, is better service to our constituents than, say, putting a mental health co-responder with just any random deputy on any given day. I think that will provide better service. I think it serves not only our deputies on the street and allows them to do the things that they are specifically trained to do, but again, it keeps the professional mental health work done by people who are trained to do it. Nobody likes the idea that we're getting funding cut from just about everywhere right now, but that's just the reality of it. Just know an unincorporated Spokane County will be paying for it by reducing FTEs and pulling them off patrol.
Funding cut, so this is at the state level.
Yeah.
Is this part of moving funds from what was happening here to the $100 million that the governor's?
No, not at all. So in years past, this is all true blood settlement money that has been paying and is funneled through WASPIC. The reality of it is in previous years, there were only a couple of regions in the state of Washington who were eligible for the funding. And they more than doubled the number of regions who were eligible for that funding now. So the pool depth was the amount of water in the pool was the same, but the pool depth has got a lot more shallow. It's spread out. A lot more people are eligible for that funding, and they made those awards. And again, our awards in the past have been very law enforcement funding heavy as a combined unit with the city and the county. My decision to separate from the city of Spokane was driven solely by the fact that about 70% of our BHU people's time was spent serving people inside the city of Spokane. And I just couldn't justify it anymore. That's why we did a separate bid this year. But it ended up being, they did not score us or the city's proposals very high because we had so much funding directed towards law enforcement funding. And they specifically came back and said we would prefer not to fund any law enforcement with these dollars. It needs to go to clinicians. So it is what it is. You know, law enforcement continues to take funding hits from both the federal side and the state side. So I just wanted you guys to be aware. I'm not asking you for any money. We're gonna lose an FTE, and we'll continue to work with the valley on maybe getting that third position back.
Was the 1.7 before only count,
I think our total award was well over 3 million.
Yeah, it was over
including the city?
It included the city, yeah, so I was estimating about 1.7 went to us.
And then, so the WASPIC funding will cover the mental health professional side going forward,
Yes.
that's what you're saying,
Yes.
for two positions.
Two positions.
Yeah. How many are there currently in that team for the mental health side?
6, the funding was for 6 previously,
But it wasn't fully staffed, right?
right? We were struggling.
How many are we staffed at? Or having, is it 3, 4?
I don't know, I know we have one, I believe there's 2, but I don't know for sure. Frontier is, they were making a lot of progress in hiring, and I think they have people waiting in kind of the queue to be hired because of the funding, and they were just waiting to see what the funding would be. And I've spoken with Jan over at Frontier, and she's pretty confident that she's gonna be able to fund or fill our 2 positions, and possibly a third position from some other funding as well.
So we won't necessarily lose a clinician side or mental health side because we're so staffed at a low level right now.
Optimistically, and from speaking to Frontier, I think we're gonna be staffed at 2 for sure. And so we'll have 2 co-responding teams for the county and the valley, and hopefully a third.
We've maintained a really good relationship with Frontier Behavioral Health over the last 5 years, and I know Jan will staff us with the people she has. If we have the position, she will staff us.
To your question, Madam Chair, do we think that the new grant program might help fill in some of those law enforcement dollars if we?
It could if we applied, and as everybody here is aware, there are some challenges with that grant funding. That, you know, depending, CJTC may believe we're eligible for it, they may not. We'll have to see what happens going forward. Now, my intent is to request, you know, if we qualify, and if we continue to qualify going into the future, that we would request funding for more behavioral health unit people, as well as community resource deputies, is something I feel significantly needs to happen. But again, we're gonna be left up to CJTC's devices, for lack of a better term.
Is there a deadline on when that is due?
I don't even think it opens up until June, like not June, but like July sometime. And I think and it might even go as late as September with some of the deadlines that the legislature gave the Criminal Justice Training Commission.
If we can't apply, we will.
Never hurts to throw your
Correct.
path, right?
So and I'm not familiar with the specifics on the state, the funding for new officers. Have they already set the criteria, or are they developing that right now?
Yes, and I'd like to say it's really clear. It's not well-written legislation by any means.
I was just wondering if they were, if they were gonna give more points to like specialty deputies that, you know, would
They
get that
have
type of
not
training.
made any
Okay.
kind of overtures that way. I will say, you know, right now, one of the complications that I see is you have to be contributing information to the WADEP system, which is a use of force data collection repository. We have some concerns with the contract. Like, I think there are some provisions in the contract, the data use agreement, that I'm not really comfortable signing right now, and WSU has pretty much said we don't care to most law enforcement officials, that it gives them some unilateral authority to change some of the provisions, and nobody's comfortable signing that, and they've pretty much said we don't care. We're gonna do it anyway. So but that's a provision we would have to comply with to be eligible for the funding, and I think it puts us as an organization and puts law enforcement in kind of a tough spot. by signing that contract. So there are some significant challenges with some of the rules, but we're trying to work through them. I'd like to be the guy who says everything's great, but it's just tough right now.
As I recall, it's 100 million over 2 years, so it's 50 million a year. And if you kind of do some back of the envelope math, it's 39 counties, however many cities, how many law enforcement do they have? The number for Spokane County is likely pretty low. So I don't know how they do it for prioritization and whether they give you more weighting for certain things, but if you look at the potential demand for it, it's not going very far.
The only clear funding mechanism that would benefit directly Spokane County in that legislation is the ability to take the Councilmatic 1/10, and obviously there's ramifications for taking that or not taking it, but that's the only part of that legislation that you can anticipate what the direct financial impact to Spokane County would be. Other than that, we're up to the whims of a board who looks at our grant application and decides what they want to fund and what they don't. So, and I will say it's not clear how that funding would be paid out, and I don't even think the funding that would be given to us would cover a full FTE. You know, if they say, hey, we're going to give you 5 FTEs, it doesn't cover the full FTE. There's a portion of that FTE that the county would have to cover for each one that was awarded.
I'll just throw out that as we kind of continue to piece this together, you know, I would be interested in looking at opioid dollars or mental health sales tax if needed. That might fit more with the mental health professional side, which it sounds like we've had such trouble staffing anyway that there may not be a need for additional dollars there. But if that can be a piece of creating an adequate program, something we should look at.
Likely not mental health because it would be more than likely considered supplanting. It's already a program in place today, but opioid could be an eligible use of it. I don't think mental health would be.
Well, if our program essentially gets scaled back for other reasons, I don't know, and there's a time period that elapses, it's a legal question, right?
I mean, if on July 1st, we're going down 1 FTE in the county and likely 1 FTE in the city of Spokane Valley. So
That was providing
that was provided by the WASPIC funding
and
that went away.
for specifically the,
Behavioral health unit deputies.
do you have data on how often the teams have been deployed?
Oh yeah, we get you all that.
Yeah, I mean, that might be good just to put together a.
I just did a presentation for WASPIC for, you know, the stats and everything, and it's pretty incredible the amount of diversion, you know, that happens away from the jail or the hospitals into different programs and the follow-ups. One of the most important part of the program is the follow-up. So they'll interact with the person on, you know, at the call or whatever, but then they keep data on them and they continue to follow up and continue to help them with their care, and that's really the biggest piece of the puzzle that keeps people out of the system is the follow-up, and that's really difficult to do when you don't have the bodies on the road doing it, and you can't tie them to a platoon or you know, the regular call load and give them the opportunity to go out and do that. So that's why pulling them away from the platoons is really the only effective way to do this.
And likely the city will also have to make changes. It's that big of a cut.
Yes, and they were kind of given the same, not kind of, they were given the same conditions by WASPIC that we were, which is they would prefer to fund clinicians and not law enforcement. And they were receiving significantly the lion's share of this grant funding previously. They were using it to pay for supervisors, officers, a coordinator, things like that. So they got hit just as hard. I think you could argue proportional wise to their budget, they probably got hit harder than we did.
Just say I appreciate your commitment to keep it going and trying to find a way, so.
I would say, yeah, we probably want to look at if this would be a valid use of $3. That I'm looking at here.
Oh, sorry, valid use of.
Opioid dollars to try to handle it with getting some more additional capital. It could be.
Yeah, we could, I know Heather and Justin keeps the opioid spreadsheets updated really well, tracking what we're receiving, what we're projected to receive. Yep. And then what the commissions have committed to date, so we certainly have something if you want to look at and say what kind of capacity might be happening.
We're building out all these other pieces of the infrastructure, you know, like stars and a place to bring folks, but if we don't have that initial contact that's successful, you know, and it's a missing piece of the system.
I will tell you, I mean, that's the reason I was willing to lose an FTE and pull somebody off of patrol. It is that valuable of a program and it's proven itself. But do we need more than what we, would two people, both the valley and county, be enough? Absolutely not to meet the demand. So we'll take what we can get, but we're gonna have somebody there no matter what. Whatever help, whatever funding we can piece together to expand it back to where it needs to be. Our original proposal to the state, to WASPIC, was 3 in the valley, 3 in unincorporated. And we thought that would get us closer to where we need to be, but if it's 1 and 1 or 3 total and share them, it's better than nothing.
And I think we gotta look at the opioid dollars that county received versus what the city of the valley received. They received that much.
Right.
So it would be probably more looking at county fees.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
and if there's a supplanting issue, remember, we are losing an FTE, so as of July 1st, one gets off the book, so it wouldn't be supplanting a position because it's gone.
Yeah, and I think the supplanting is really kind of looks more about, is it a program that you come today?
But could you expand it? Maybe not to use it to pay for the one that exists, but if we're going to expand it to 2,
Yeah.
could you use the dollars to get us to 2 in the unincorporated instead of just 1?
We'll partner with our trusted civil team. They'll help us.
I'm sure they'll come up with the correct legal answer for that, right?
And I would say if opioid dollars could be used to fund part of it, I know with the 200,000 that the board gave us a couple of years ago, we are not expending all of that 200,000 on that analyst. I know there is some room for us to probably shift some of those dollars if we can use it.
Wow, I'm just communicating back and forth with Justin and his initial sense he needs to look a little more is they would probably qualify for opioids. So we'll get it queued up in a near term board meeting and share with you kind of the funds that are available going out in the future. And what it could be folded to.
And I think opioid, exposure and crisis calls go hand in hand, so I think there's definitely a nexus to it.
When I was out with the city's fire BRU, the sheriff's office BHU was there with an overdose. I mean, on opioids.
Right.
But maybe you guys can look into what's left of that, so you're not expending the whole opioid contribution.
Not the entire $200,000. I mean, I'll have to look at what salary and fringe are. Kind of get you the delta. It's probably anywhere from $50,000 to $65,000 probably, if I had to, off the top of my head, estimate. Okay. As an advisor, we're not asking you guys to do anything, but thank you for the consideration on ways we can help. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is for us. We're good. Thank you.
All right, do we have Aaron with us online next up? Oh, Aaron's here. Oh,
She said she would see, she kept saying, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, really? Like,
in person, look,
person.
it's Aaron. We were waiting for you to pop up on
No,
screen.
I'm here. I'm live. It's me.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you to those that were able to join our kickoff fun yesterday.
Although we didn't get to meet the donkey.
Jack, he's working on some things.
He's got the dog, he's very busy.
Yes, he's working, he likes to hug people, he plays soccer. So be amazed when you come to the fair and meet Jack. But yeah, we talked about our theme this year is Discover the Fun. So we're having a game theme throughout the grounds. We'll have a scavenger's hunt of sorts where you can solve a puzzle and enter at the end to win some prizes. So we did something similar last year. It was a huge hit. Families loved it. So a lot of great feedback. Ron, if we have the next slide, please. All right, there it is. The long awaited, the lineup, it's here. Tuesday night, Tracy Lawrence and Rodney Atkins. Wednesday night, Vanilla Ice, Sir Mix-a-Lot, CNC Music Factory. And then Thursday night, Boys Like Girls with Plain White Tees. So good variety. Tickets go on sale this Friday through Tickets West, online only. All right, next slide. So we are just jumping into the nuts and bolts of why I am here today. These are our proposed ticket rates for this fair. These are our admission rates. If you look at this lovely spreadsheet, you will see we are proposing a $2 increase on Monday through Thursday for adult tickets, going from $13 to $15. If you'll note, the last time we raised these rates was in 2021. So it's a little bit overdue. Raising these rates will keep us on target with our business plan and our numbers that we have forecasted for planning and for capital purposes. The next item, you'll see our adult ticket Friday through Sunday going from 15 to 17. Our military child tickets will jump from 10 to 12, so they'll be $12 all 10 days of the fair. Adults 6 and under, free, and that's something we've had for many years. Right here, you'll see our preseason rates, and I would like to say we offer some exceptional opportunities and affordable tickets that you can purchase all summer up until the day before fair through the fair office, through Tickets West, through some of our outlet partners. We promote all that out on our website. But you'll see that our adult ticket is going from $10 to $11. Our senior military tickets will go from 7 to 8. And senior day, Monday, September 8th, 55 and over get in free. We have a sponsor for that day, US Bank. Then we still have an exceptional program. We offer our group ticket sales program. If a corporation or a group of family and friends buy 20 or more tickets, we will sell those to you at $8 a piece. So that's quite a savings. So working on some other gate promotions. And then the last item is parking, which we are not changing this year. We're leaving it at $5 on senior day, $10 all other days. I will give you a heads up that I will imagine next year we will need to look at raising our parking rate, which even if we go to $15 next year, is still pretty affordable for parking rates around Spokane for events. So any questions on these proposed rate increases?
Like we're good.
Okay, great. And then again, just all tickets will go on sale July 7th. So Friday the 13th this week, it's just the 3 concert tickets online, Tickets West only. All tickets again on sale July 7th. If you buy them through our fair office, there's no handling fees. You can buy everything through Tickets West online. Right now, we have partnered up with Wheatland Bank to sell a carnival wristband package that gets you a carnival ride bracelet and fair admission for $40, which is a great value. So, next slide. We're requesting that the board approves our rates and the June 17th agenda. And the next one is just if there are any questions. Yes, Jack.
See the.
Well, we kind of packaged the 3 together, but he is our newest feature this year for, yes, to the gang out there. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Forward to meeting.
Good. Yeah, he's super cute. And also this year, we're bringing back dairy cattle, which we haven't had at the fair for a number of years. So there's gonna be some opportunities to engage with some baby dairy cattle as well.
Very cute. You know, that's so great.
Yeah.
Midnight was the
Midnight
name.
was there yesterday.
Yes.
And of course, Bo, the
He's so handsome.
good.
His goatee,
Yeah.
yes.
Very stylish.
He is.
Yeah.
He hasn't changed a bit since last year. We all noticed that. He's looking good. And he got a ride inside the cab of the car in air conditioning to get to the event yesterday. So, yeah, I hope that worked out well for them, so.
No, that's very
Great.
good.
Well, thank you again. We're excited. We're less than 3 months out and we'll there. All right.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. I thought
Thank
it was a
you.
good event. Saw the coverage on the stations, so that was great.
It was really good. Thank you. All right.
Perfect.
Have a great day.
Hey, thank you. That takes us to, yeah. Yeah.
Good morning, commissioners. We're here to brief you on the awarding of the a grant that I had filled out at the beginning of the year. This was for as part of it fit the criteria within the infrastructure upgrade project that I'm doing for the energy savings side of it, which we were awarded about 750,000 for that, and that was to assist with the development and planning, drawings, engineering, that we have already taken advantage of, and we will be using that award as soon as possible to apply towards the project.
And this is on the docket for this afternoon because this contract technically ends June 30th, so I'm gonna sign it and then spend the money as quick as possible.
So this came out of a bill that the legislature passed in 2024. 15+ million was provided to public institutions for compliance with Clean Buildings Act. And it was we weren't given an opportunity to apply for whatever we wanted to ask for. It was a formulaic. They said, here's the amount that you're going to get. That's $750,000. So we've got we've spent the money because it can be used. I think, Gil, you applied for it for our pre-design efforts, right?
Yes.
So while it expires the end of June, we've also indicated to Heather they'll do an extension of it. But I would anticipate we'll be able to get these quickly reimbursed to us. And then on our infrastructure kind of tracking financing sheet, this will be an item that we'll add as another funding source.
Yes. And as part of that, we also qualified for the early adopter program with the Department of Commerce. As part of that, I'll have more information on that, but they have already reached out to Avista, is where we'll actually see the reflection of those savings, which could be quite substantial. From what I'm being told, that we were probably one of the larger projects that went through the Commerce that qualified as part of this infrastructure for the House Bill 1257 items.
So was that already calculated in the projected savings that we were hoping to get, or was this on top of that?
This is on top of that.
So we'll start to see
Yes,
these
all of
like rebates right
Yep.
away.
Yep. All of this that we've applied for after the project was awarded, these are all items that came after those calculations.
That's great.
So these are just additional savings that we're working to try to reduce that overall scope of the project, the cost of the project.
That's good.
Just a thought. How many square feet are in this building?
In
Plus
this
or
one,
minus, yeah, and it's the
this one alone, I want to say, and I don't quote me on this, but I want to say we're at about probably 75
Okay. But I'm just, we're gonna spend a ton of money.
Yeah.
Bringing this thing up. And so, I was asked last week, have you guys priced out what it would cost to just build a new courthouse? And I said, no, that's never even been part of our conversation. I said, you could probably build a new building for less than you're gonna spend upgrading this one. And I thought, you know what, I shame on me for not thinking about that. I mean, obviously, this is one of the two oldest courthouses in the state. But we're being impacted by the state to upgrade. And so $750,000 on a $32 million project. Oh, that's a lot. So I just raise it for consideration. I mean, I hate to lose this building, but when we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, it'd be interesting just to find out what the replacement costs would be to replace this building. With new technology, new energy savings, insulation, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, just a thought, not campaigning for it.
No, but as part of the project, as we did this, we're part of that master meter proposal for the project itself. So because we're sky bridged with not only here, the annex, the public safety building and the jail, in order to get those buildings to qualify in the UI targets, they're actually one big building. So even this building itself, as part of this project, it's really all the buildings combined as one. Since they are environmentally controlled, sky bridged, we were able to take advantage of making them all one building.
Ran a quick number on that. That's $426 a square foot.
Yeah.
It's a new building.
This on the historic preservation.
Yep.
So.
We'd still probably be forced to bring this up to
Yeah.
standard, even if we didn't use it.
Yes, because I mean, you look at what's happening in the U district with the Jensen Bird building that's actually falling down, but it's not, they can't do anything with it because of the historic preservation.
Sorry, last question. The savings that you're talking about that we would get from a Vista, is that after we put the improvements into
Yes.
place?
Yes.
Okay, and that's
Yeah.
on top of what we would hope to see in energy savings anyway.
Yeah, there's
Some sort of different billing structure or.
Yeah, there's an early adopters because we buy our energy at the same cost they do. But as an early adopter, we will get state percentages off of that even.
Our
Just for,
rates.
for being an early adopter.
Okay, thank you.
And that's when, once we start the M&V process and we start monitoring what we're savings, that's when we'll find out exactly what those projections are.
Thanks for applying for the grant. Good job.
Yeah, I'll
Those
keep,
commerce applications.
if it's available, I'll keep applying.
That's great. Thank you. Kevin, take us to George.
Morning. We're here to give a bit of an update on our HUD, Housing and Urban Development grants. So several weeks back, we came and presented our stack of projects that we were considering for funding. At that time, we had not had our award letter or had not received our award letter from HUD. This is for the CDBG home and ESG, so Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Affordable Housing Partnership Program, and then the Emergency Solutions Grant Program. We have since received that letter, so we're now ready to proceed with submitting the consolidated plan to HUD with those figures in there. And Aiden does have some things that he wanted to update you all on some considerations with those funding sources. At the time, Commissioner Jordan, you had asked a question about, hey, there's some balances there. And so Aiden's done some work, and Ron, if you don't mind pulling up there's a PDF in that looked like an Excel document. You pull that up.
Thank you, George, and thank you for meeting with us this morning. I just wanted to quickly go into, once we received our entitlement award from HUD. If you'll recall from our original briefings, we went in with conservative estimates just because we didn't know how much money that we were going to expect from the federal government. HUD in their award had a very similar number for the CDBG entitlement award that we received last year. So we actually have an excess and a little bit of extra money that it'll ultimately be up to the commissioners and how they want to divvy it up. Primarily, there are 3 projects in consideration. So the Greenhouse Food Bank, Meals on Wheels, and the communities and schools of Spokane County. Those 3 projects were partially funded in the community development block grant portfolio. All the other projects were fully funded. As such, the proposal that we kind of bring forward to you today is for the Greenhouse Food Bank. There's a large stack of capital dollars that we can actually fully fund that project by putting another $150,000 to basically top out that acquisition. For public services, there is still a 15% cap in the yearly entitlement award. What that essentially means is we have about $30,000 that we could utilize for this award. That essentially, all of these public service agreements are 2-year contracts. But this would technically only affect the first year. So if there is, for example, Meals on Wheels that has a $60,000 contract, instead of receiving $30,000 this year and $30,000 next year, we could front load some of that money for the first year and still have that estimated $30,000 in the second year, depending on what the allocation may be in that second year as well. But that $30,000 is ultimately up to the commissioners to divide it however they choose. Our recommendation in-house is a $15,000 split between the 2 programs, $15,000 in Meals on Wheels, $15,000 in communities and schools. However, if the commissioners have any other suggestions or reasons to change that number, we highly encourage you to discuss among yourselves and direct the department as needed. Are there questions about that process?
Can you refresh my memory on the Greenhouse Food Bank?
Absolutely. The Greenhouse Food Bank, the food bank is located in Deer Park, and due to just general operating costs, they found it was going to be a lot easier for everybody involved to move their facility. And so they currently have a new facility in a purchase lease agreement. So they are currently spending about $4,000, I want to say, per month in rent that's going towards the purchase of the building. The grant itself would be to fully purchase the building, effectively eliminating an operating cost on their end, giving sole property ownership for the greenhouse facility.
They have funding to continue
Correct, yes.
operating. Okay. Sometimes when we're doing all capital and they don't always have the money to keep going, because the capital's taken care of.
I will say that I believe the purchase of the building was about 600,000, and by selling the old facility, they were able to put about 300,000 somewhere. I don't have the numbers on me, but was able to put the profits from selling the old building into the purchase of the new one.
So I'm assuming it's a larger, better laid out facility.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the prior facility was really a single family residence
Oh.
that had a whole building built on the side of the property. So kind of ran into the issue that y'all are facing with the courthouse, where just the cost to operate and maintain was not sustainable.
They moved into a bigger commercial facility with the ability to have large walk-in freezers and a little bit more security upgrades for the building as well.
Seems like a good investment for Deer Park to have that. Not worry about the lease payments.
You can see online This is, I think, what seems to be the new facility looks like a good spot and clean and spacious, and then they've got a pretty good list of corporate sponsors and supporters. Just speaking to the operating piece, I think. So I think that sounds good.
So with that, we'll bring to the legislative agenda next week, the consolidated plan. We'll revise our stack of projects that's in that document to reflect, as you see here. And then we'll submit that to HUD. And then following that, we'll be able to eventually, once approved, access those funds and then enter into contracts. So you'll see these individual contracts come through on your legislative agenda down the road once we actually have that contract in hand with HUD. So with that, we'll pivot. And the next item that we wanted to bring for you is just a general update on the disaster recovery grant. So this is the community development block grant disaster recovery specifically for the Oregon and Gray Road fires. We've been doing a tremendous amount of community engagement, outreach, working with the long-term recovery group, etc. The presentation that's on the screen right now, this is a presentation that we gave to the Elk community as well as the Medical Lake communities last week. So last Tuesday we were up in Elk, and then on Thursday we were out in Medical Lake. In Elk, I think we had about 45 folks in attendance. We were really impressed with the attendance there. And then in Medical Lake, we had about 83 folks in attendance. We had a really good showing out there as well. We held the meeting in Elk at the Riverside Elementary School. The meeting in Medical Lake was held at the Medical Lake High School in their auditorium there. The meeting in Elk was tense. There's a lot of frustration that was expressed regarding insurance and the struggles that folks are dealing with there. I think those same feelings exist in Medical Lake as well. It just wasn't maybe as vocal. I think we learned from the Elk meeting to establish our boundaries early and clearly. So that certainly helped the direction of our meeting in Medical Lake. We, as part of this presentation, had a survey that was conducted. And so we're really excited about the response that we got from the survey. Usually we don't have great community engagement in our processes, but this one we did. We had 168 responses to the survey. 64% of those responses came from Medical Lake, 24% came from Elk, and then 13% came from other within Spokane County. Within the, we were asking folks for not like aggregate detail, but big picture detail. If you were to allocate funds from this, how would you do that? Would you put it towards housing? Would you put it towards infrastructure, etc.? The top three, number one was housing, number two was infrastructure, and number three was mitigation. There's a tremendous amount of feedback that we received from both communities regarding burnt trees that are still standing in slash piles. So there's a strong desire to do what we can to remove, replant, and improve those areas. Let's see, as far as
Is this in the presentation, what you're?
no, sorry, so I'll send you all
Okay.
our survey just concluded last night, so I'll
Got it.
get you all the results of the survey.
So it was housing and then what, and then mitigation?
Housing, infrastructure,
Okay.
and then mitigation. Yeah.
And I know you was there any detail to that and questioning or like a general question about housing, or was it any further breakout to that?
We did break down a little bit, but there's probably 8 or 10 layers that we could go deep on this, and we went like 2 layers deep. So for example, for housing, we said, do you prioritize new construction for homeowners, rehab, new construction for rental or buyout? And the ranking on that was new construction for homeowners, rehabilitation, and then new construction for rental housing. So that was kind of how that went out. And really what we're doing is in this initial phase, so what we told both the communities when we met with them is we have a car, we just don't have keys right now. And that's to say that we have this award, this is intent to award from HUD for the $44 million. We just don't have access to that $44 million. And this planning process is what will allow us to do that. So anyways, we're just asking some of these big questions. We're gonna come back to y'all several times in the coming years as we reshape and refine exactly what this plan looks like as we address the needs, the current needs, the unmet needs, and future needs of the communities. And so Aiden's gonna share a little bit about our timeline and some of the work that he's been doing.
Yeah, so we've been kind of working in overdrive just as we're getting more information from both FEMA, SBA, local community partners, really anybody we work with or data we can get our hands on. We're providing a essential first draft action plan to the advisory committee by Thursday to go out for public comment. That information is not technically finalized, it's in the works, but we're putting a lot of manpower and hours into working on getting that available and presentable for the public. So it's mostly just filling in the bits and pieces and utilizing both public comments and the data that we received from the survey that just concluded and inputting that information into the action plan. After that 30-day comment period, we will likely send that first submission into HUD just to kind of get those keys. We are going to go through subsequent amendments. This action plan is going to basically become a living document that will be amended multiple times as we get more and more aggregate data. Right now, as George was saying, we're getting more just overview of new construction rehab projects, just kind of budget allocations towards them, but those allocations are not permanent and subject to change just through future amendment processes. Once the review from HUD is complete, we'll go through some financial certifications to essentially finalize that process. And so like George was saying, we will continuously update you as we go through that process with HUD. Yeah.
So really our timeline right now, what we're looking at as far as submission. So by the end of July, we'll submit our initial draft plan to HUD for their review, consideration, hopefully approval. Once we have that approval, then we have access to those funds. We'll be starting a specific request for proposal process for these funds based on some of the feedback that we've heard from the communities that we'll be putting out with the goal of hopefully by early 2026, we'll be entering into contracts with folks. That's our hope and kind of our timeline right now, but certainly subject to change as we learn more from HUD. So anyways, that's just kind of a very basic general update of where we're at and progress we've made and how we've been engaging with the community.
You guys feeling for your communities?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, the long-term recovery group is, I mean, they've done some incredible things with getting the house kits built. I mean, you know, I know there are folks that would love for it to go faster, but I mean, a lot of these dollars have strings on them. They, you know, I know I hear from Mayor Cooper, you know, the difficulty of the reimbursement model, but that's just how it works. But I mean, I think, you know, things are moving ahead at a pretty impressive speed when you consider that it's government that is playing a huge role in this. So, you know, you always wish it would be faster, but you know, a lot of folks are being helped at the same time. So
there are a lot of changes that the folks that have been impacted by the fire are having to deal with. Insurance is one of them. And future reliability on emergency responders to be able to even respond to fires. I know that there's one part of the Medical Lake fire where Fire District 3 said, unless there's infrastructure improvements, we're not going to be able to send our troops in there to fight a fire in the future. That's pretty devastating for some homeowners that are got property along that area and stuff. So, you know, but I agree with Josh. I mean, the long-term recovery group has done some amazing things. I mean, they've really stepped to the table and, so kudos to them for the outstanding work they've done.
Yeah, and they've just been a phenomenal partner for us along the way as well.
So the action plan, I heard you that it'll be a living document. What is the action? I mean, is that a general list of categories with different shapes to how the dollars are spent? And then does the long-term recovery group have input on that as well? Just help me understand what that means.
Yeah, George. So the way that the action plan is kind of broken up is in a couple of different sections. One is an unmet needs summary, which essentially says what was all the damage that occurred due to the initial disaster and what has been provided so far, either by FEMA, SBA, Long Range Recovery Group, or just general insurance. And then the delta of that, that's the unmet need of what still needs to be done. So some of the data we found of anywhere that like $25 million of property damage in FEMA data alone was reported. Only 3 million of FEMA data was provided. So the delta for FEMA's data alone is 22 million. Now we have other data sources we're going to consult with to determine what that unmet need is, but that kind of tells our department of dollar amounts that may be like that 22 million, for example, that perhaps a percentage of the grant should be proportional to what that unmet need is. There's also a mitigation needs assessment and then a sort of allocation of various different projects where we'll kind of put those budget categories into these general dollar amounts, for example, general infrastructure, which we can later, as living document, future amendments, break down what those specific infrastructure projects will be. Does that?
Will that go up? Yeah, that help. When will it go out again?
So the
For public comment?
Public
Soon.
comment this Thursday.
So will we see a copy of that when it goes out?
Yep. Yeah, and we've got HUD was able to connect us with the national consultant on disaster recovery. So I think Aiden's getting a draft to them. Is it today?
yeah, and
End of today, he's getting a draft to them to have cursory review, make sure that there's not anything significant that we've missed before we send it out to the public and then on to HUD. I will say, regarding the long-term recovery group, we're consulting with them, but because they will be applying for the request for proposal, we're making sure that there's an appropriate distinction there so that there's no conflict of interest when they do apply for funds.
How confident are you that we'll be able to spend the entire 44 million?
Gosh, I'll say I'm confident, just based on the need and kind of once we start parsing it out, that was one of the things we were doing this morning to say, how much do we put in each bucket of funding? That 44 million does start to shrink pretty quick. What it may look like in the next 3 years, versus what we're thinking right now, I suspect that's gonna shift a fair amount. But infrastructure alone, if we get into public infrastructure in some of these areas, we know one project alone would consume almost the entirety of the funds.
Well, and that's assuming that HUD will accept that
Yes.
as a project and qualify. So just a thought popped in my head. I'm not sure it's a good one. I'm not sure it's even legal, but not where Brian leading law, but the structure of the program will allow for it. Since so many of these people are having trouble getting reinsured, I mean, the insurance companies go, here's the check, leave us alone. Part of the challenge is the insurance companies do not want to take on the full coverage for a replacement house. But if we had surplus funds, think about the idea of creating a insurance gap fund so that, maybe an insurance company wouldn't do 100% replacement, but maybe they do 60% replacement and the fund would cover the other 40, kind of a deal. So, it's basically like gap financing. The only thing is we're doing the gap for the insurance coverage and stuff.
something similar to that. Florida tried for a while. They reached a point where they couldn't fund it anymore. But maybe there's some help for these folks, because otherwise, if they can't get insurance, they can't get financing, they don't build a house. So how do you fill in that gap so that they can at least get the financing to rebuild their house? Just an idea. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but just, if we got surplus funds, maybe that's a way to use it.
And I think Commissioner French, you're really capturing a lot of the story that we're hearing from constituents in both of your districts. I'm not sure on that, but that's one of the great things about working with a national consultant is we can pull that by them and see if there's been any examples of that to explore it, see if that's even viable.
Yeah, I know LA is gonna have the same, the insurance companies have pulled out in mass, because they can't cover the liability.
George, apologies if I missed it, but could you share with the commissioners kind of what their role will be as it relates to submission, approval and submission of an action plan for consideration by HUD?
Yeah, very similar to the consolidated plan. So you'll see the draft plan before it's submitted. You'll also see the suite of projects. Initially, we're not going to have individual projects. We'll just have like large buckets of funding that we intend to appropriate. And then once we put out the request for proposal, then we'll refine that plan, bring something like what we just had up on the board earlier that then itemizes out where all those funds will go. It's going to be a subrecipient model like what we do with all of our other pass-through funds. So yeah, we'll be back regularly once we really get this thing rolling.
And then George's team is experiencing this right now. There's a lot of the community input is required as part of the plan, which is important to get. Community has different perspectives around what their needs are and what they want to use the funds for. And there's limitations on what the funds can be used for. There's income limitations on who can get access to the funds. So it's a challenging spot for George's team to be in because he's hearing what the requests are, but not all those requests are going to fit into what the funds can be used for. So.
Yeah, it's going to be delicate, and we're trying to be as transparent as we can with folks when we meet with them to say not all of you are going to receive assistance through this. There are these income thresholds and other limiters on it. So we're going to have some bumps along the way, but we're prepared for that. And hopefully we've done enough through our community engagement that folks can be frustrated, but hopefully they understand why is our goal. That's it.
Your turn, you're up.
So I am on the Aging Long-Term Care Board. There's a proposed ILA change or amendment before all the counties who are a party to that agreement. I'll just give my quick overview and I'll let Jim kind of walk through a few details if that's okay. In a nutshell, all the counties are being asked to make a really technical change to the ILA, which is essentially just complying with the latest federal regulations. And it is that the Planning and Management Council chair of the Aging and Long-Term Care organization should not be actually sitting on and voting on the board. That's just kind of a best practice, and it's come down through federal regulation that it's not allowed. And so that conflicts with our ILA. We need to make that change. My understanding is that there's been no concerns expressed by the other counties. So it's just kind of cleaning up our agreement to make sure it complies with federal law. And you're welcome to add anything you would like.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair CUNY received a letter from Aging and Long-Term Care in May of this year. And the executive director of Aging and Long-Term Care said, hey, listen, the board of directors is recommending that the ILA, which sets up the agency, be modified as Commissioner Jordan indicated. I want to remind the board of a couple of things. Number one, in 1963, the federal law was established, the Older Americans Act. And the Older Americans Act is a program to provide services for the older Americans. In the Older Americans Act, it was required that there be local agencies set up to implement the Older American Acts in an agency area. So at that point in time, in 1978, 5 counties and the city of Spokane formed the area agency on the agency. And under that interlocal agreement, you set up a board of directors, and you also set up a subsequent entity called the Planning and Management Council, which is really an advisory board. Subsequent to the original formation, the city of Spokane Valley was added to the area on agency, so they have a voting membership on the board. The area and agency meets, the board meets, and as Commissioner Jordan indicated, they have recommended that the ILA be amended in the 2 particulars that Commissioner Jordan has indicated. From a legal perspective, legal counsel has reviewed the proposed amendments, and we find them consistent with the federal CFRs, and we are recommending that this item be placed on the next legislative agenda for board action. So it's pretty simple. I think Commissioner Jordan outlined the 2 changes. And if the board doesn't have any questions, we will place this on the next legislative agenda for formal board action.
And I thank Jim for all of his help
Oh.
getting it ready to go.
Not a problem.
And
Thank you very much.
I've just found, I think, did you serve on Aging Long-Term Care? I just found it to be a really well-run organization. It's got a real diverse board, as everybody knows, and it just seems to function really well, so.
Unless there's any questions, Madam Chair, I think that's Commissioner Jordan and my presentation on that. Thank you very much, board members.
And take Jeff, we're just 5 minutes behind, so we're not too far.
Excellent.
But
Where's the trauma doc?
I know. We are going to.
We should actually start bringing it in, Emily, might like us more.
We do have an executive session that we are gonna start at 11:40.
So we'll stop then.
Yeah. Go to that.
First thing I'd like, just for general awareness, I'm Melanie Dickinson. Our purchasing director moved up her departure date a little bit, so today's actually her last day. If you happen to see her, she was gonna be the 22nd. I think kids are out of school and she's excited to be home, so FYI out now. We were going to reverse the order, which is kind of tradition, it seems. And we'll start with just a couple items on the outside agency list, because that will inform the next sheet that we go. And most particularly in regards to our budget letter that will be going out hopefully later this week. The WSU extension, we need to fill that one in, so I'd like to start at the bottom of the outside agency allocation. We haven't discussed this one a whole lot yet. You will see WSU has 2 lines. The bottom line is the staffing that the county provides above and beyond what is required. We're not required to do any staffing, but it is the staffing that is done. And then the top line is more M&O type expenses for the programs they offer. And that's on an annualized contract. So there's the two different lines, just by way of FYI. There were 2.6 FTEs and 1 full FTE in that bottom line. One of the 0.6 FTEs is no longer with the county. We're not going to replace that position. So fully loaded, the bottom line has already been cut by roughly 65,000, inclusive of benefits through that attrition.
So we're roughly starting from about 160 on the bottom line. If you take that attrition into account, and then the 303 on the top line. Thoughts, questions, ideas on this? Or Mr. Maceo, the great oracle. He has informed me none of this funding is required by RCW. So this is all about.
Okay, so we're not required to do it now, sure.
State law provides that all counties can enter into agreements with WSU Extension Services for the functions they provide. And I believe almost all counties have entered into similar agreements that Spokane County has. But it's not mandatory, it's discretionary. And what they do is they have a master contract which we sign, and then on an annual basis, they update our participation financially based upon the items that Mr. McMorris has shared with you, the number of full-time staff plus the M&O expenses. And so we've been doing this for some time. On several occasions, the county commissioners, when we've had budget shortfalls, have questioned legal counsel on, do we have a legal obligation to fund this? And we've always shared the same thing, no, we do not. But the Board of County Commissioners, in looking closely at the functions which WSU Extension provides in Spokane County, felt that it was an appropriate expenditure of county dollars. Thank you, Jeff.
So what is contained within the WSU contract?
A lot of it is purchases that they make and resell. Master Garden type stuff, so like books, how-to guides and such. I just know those because they come through Workday now. When I see them, so they put on events. There's some food that comes through, some appears to be luncheon type events, or at least heavy snacks. Assume that's with Master Gardeners also. They, you know, that they do pesticide control, that sort of help. Whether you're a backyard hobbyist or a farmer by trade, provide services there. Most of that's actually covered by WSU, but there could be some enhancements in it. Is 4-H part of that? So I'd say 4-H and Master Gardeners would be the most high profile, well known. They also get some grants on their own. We're now doing a mock study up on Green Bluff. I think we were on this last week. So that was a grant. So that's work they do outside of WSU's funding or county.
I'm just. Thought is if we do away with the county expenses in excess of the contract, try to, help them get down to a different number. That's why I was asking what is considered as part of the WSU contract versus what's in excess.
Yeah, the other line is strictly staff. So the contract is everything in addition to staff. There's also, they have a very high printing now. So I don't know if they do a lot of copying.
Copy resale. Can we ask them what those costs would be if we were, as we would to reduce, what would be going away?
We had a meeting with Gary and they're looking forward to receiving a target budget from the commissioners so they can work with WSU to align within the target budget.
Essa and Courtney met with Gary and Tammy a couple of weeks ago when the one employee left. We did move some of their payroll functions to Courtney in the budget office to put them kind of on the central services and to pick up some of the slack instead of losing a person. So they did talk through it and they're very aware of our budget constraints and conversation. I was in the conversation based on what they told me, mirrored kind of like with the health district last week. Really felt there was a willingness to work with them. Did it off.
I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for getting me in contact with. Yeah. Yes, and so I was hoping to actually have a call with him later today. It took a while to. He's kind of over all of the WSU extension offices, and might have a better sense of the WSU side of the budget. So.
I'm aware they are looking at WSU and going more to a regional model.
Right, so I guess I was interested in hearing and communicating to him as well. I'm assuming he's kind of a step up.
Yeah.
About our constraints here and making, just hearing what they were already thinking about, because I can't imagine there's not other counties across the state that are having these same conversations with that. And WSU is also having internal, WSU conversations about but they have a mission, and this is part of their mission.
It's required.
So, yes.
You're a longtime leader in that office. On his exact title. He retires right around the 4th of July. So we have him for another month, give or take. And then my understanding is Tammy will probably, we're assuming, step in as an interim. Doesn't sound like she's really wanting to take on that next level of responsibility. And she's sharing some things with you. That's what she told me last week. So she's not sure if Gary's going to be replaced in a full-time capacity in the county, or if it'll be more of this regional model, and then Tammy would be the local person that she'd report to somebody who's not necessarily. In addition to these $2 amounts, the county does own the building they're in. So we also in kind, we don't charge them any brand utilities.
It's a little over $140,000 a year for utilities and operating that building.
So that we in kind. So that is another large donation, for lack of a better word, from the budget.
So every county has some kind of contribution for WSU extension.
That is my understanding, Commissioner. I think Jeff confirmed
I
that.
don't think we can speak to all 38 for sure, but
Yeah.
generally speaking.
Almost all of them
Yes.
do. A very similar arrangement with Spokane County. The amounts may be different, but a very similar arrangement.
And some might, I'm pretty sure like the one just north of us is a tri-county. I don't know if they have specific to Andre Stevens and Ferry. I think those, often I know Columbia, Garfield work together. So yes, but maybe not specific to their.
Not individually, but maybe as a collective.
Most are, I worked with the same group when I was in King County. The lady I worked for, she was from the rural parts of King County, so I was a little more active in the agricultural part of that. So like even King, Pearson, Stonehome, and Ishar, most populated counties do have an active extension, and it was reduced in my time there, at least during the 11, 12, 13 session was made budget's bad. Yes, today.
So, and the extensions are required as a land grant university, which is what WSU is. So other land grant universities across the nation have required the same thing. That's why we have these extensions, is it's part of, because of them being a land grant university.
And just, there's 2.6 FTEs under the county expenses. Is that
That
what you
would
said?
now be 1.6. There was 2.2, because there were two at 0.6 each.
Okay, how many are now?
One
1.6.
full-time and a 0.6.
And what do those folks do?
0.6. All we've ever been told is she keeps their website current
Okay,
and focuses on website ADA pieces.
okay,
The full-time person is really the point of contact.
That's
You call WSU extension and he will get you to where you need to be. He knows where the community events are happening. He's, to me,
like an
he's the
administrative person.
one that's
Receptionist administrative role.
submits the bills. I would say he's the one who really He's the hub of that office.
But I think if we say, you know, I'm just throwing this out there, if we cut the expenses in excess of the contract and just stick with the contract for this year, they would have to figure out how to do what they need to do within that number. They're looking.
So like cut the, go to the 303 as a whole number. And then let them choose how much they would prefer for salaries and work and help.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just seeing it the way it's expressed here, you know, county expenses in excess of the that's what, I don't know what the contract is. So that's kind of part of my question, but that's, I mean, it seems like if we have expenses in excess of the contract. I don't know what contract is. But is that a choice if they're using the staff to do that versus having that staff to do?
I don't know
the
the
contract
history.
is?
You know the history of that? Why our staffing is not in the contract?
I don't know, Jeff, that answer that inquiry.
Just like that's kind of how we've done it.
Right, but I think that's what we've gotta say, that, I mean, again, to cut entirely. It's just tough, so it's like step down this year and then we look at it next year for what we need to do.
So I found something online here. I mean, it's a little outdated. It's 2020, but this is a WASAC document. This is, I assume this is a state average here. This is all the WSU extensions, but it's saying extension funding. It's at 55% of their funding. It says sponsored projects. 11% is federal, 25% is state, 9% is county funding. So, I mean, I don't know if that exact average holds true in 2025 as it did in 2020, or if our specific Spokane extension branch holds true to that, but at least in 2020, I mean, that's really, it's the only thing I found on a quick Google search here.
Grant funding will make a lot of sense because of the research university making an application to grants. But I think that would bring them a lot of the bigger grant dollars, whether it's state or federal.
But I mean, potentially, we're talking about, you know, a pretty small piece of their overall pie here. At, you know, could be roughly 9% of what they're doing here. So, so I mean, I guess I'll throw out again what I did last week. I mean, we have not received any indication that if our funding goes away, any programming goes away. Just that, I mean, this kind of is, we are subsidizing the operations of WSU's extension branch. So I would think we should, you know, I'll throw out what I did last week. I think we should go drop to 0 across the board.
If I've set on a file, if you look at this is our interlocal agreement with them back from 2023. So it's a couple of years old, but it gives an indication of the types of expenses that the WSU contract goes for. And it's, as I look through it, it's principally headcount. There's very little. I think we absorbed some of the M&O on copier leases and travel stuff. But this will give you the detail of how that 304 back in 23 was made up, and I would anticipate it would be pretty similar to what we would see, the resolution would have been for 2025. So mostly paying for their staff.
Under the contract.
Yeah, so for this year's number, $303,000, this gives you the framework of them.
Where did you find this magical?
I've been looking for one more
I was-
recent than this and I cannot find it anywhere.
I'm
I was
not sure-
asking,
I'm not
that's
sure if
it.
they provided us to sign it, because oftentimes WSU doesn't come in until 3 to 6 months in the year, and it's, oh, here's your MOA to sign for the new amount this year.
Yeah, our MOA from this past year is like one paragraph that says we're gonna provide 303,000.
So they didn't even, that's right, they didn't even provide any detail this year. So I found one from a couple years ago in our resolution.
We weren't finding it.
Huh?
That'll explain what we were.
I don't remember even when I got this. I just looked through some old files that I had.
The details in the whereas statement is to assist the people of the state of Washington in making informed decisions through research and experience-based educational programs, to improve agriculture and natural resources, to improve capabilities of individuals and families, to aid communities in developing and adapting to changing conditions, to provide developmental opportunities for youth.
I think one of our outstanding questions have always been if it's WSU's responsibility to provide this at land grant university, are any of the services going to change by the county reducing their fund? Can't answer the question, but it's a voluntary contribution by the county to help offset some of WSU's expenses. So very well could be that the services continue for the community, but I can't say that for sure.
Right, I think that's a question we need to know.
Yep.
So Amber, you can check Amber Gaffney. Who heads up the extension for WSU. That's to me the question. I think we have to make some cuts, so I mean, I'm not sure I'm ready to go to zero quite yet, but certainly whatever makes sense. I mean, trying to figure out what is our contract. I mean.
A paragraph.
Not
Yeah,
our best
but
contract
that's
ever.
only 303.
Right.
The rest is the staffing, the rest is the.
Right, but they gotta figure out how to do staffing within their amount. So I mean, so
I
that's
agree.
where it's like, we've got to figure out,
Take it to one line.
yeah, how much funding are they getting from WSU? So we know, otherwise we're gonna have, with the master gardening program, different programs that they do. Talking to us, so I mean, so that's where I need to be informed as to what does WSU Extension actually do? And what are they funding? And what are we funding? And if we shouldn't be funding the positions, that should be part of what WSU is doing. Looking at that, I mean, it looks like we're partially funding positions, we're not, so it must be.
We're paying full freight on that 1.6.
On the 1.6 that's on the county side, but then we're paying a portion of Gary's salary of some of the other WSU tenured staff.
Yeah.
That are provided at this location.
The county programs listed on the WSU extension for Spokane County are 4-H youth development, EF, NEP, SNAP Ed, consumer food safety, master gardeners, and food systems.
I think the Master Gardener program heavily leverages a volunteer network. So I think that's less risky with a funding change, that would be jeopardized.
Our 0.1, I believe, is kind of the hub of the volunteer network, particularly for master gardeners.
Or the one FTE. So what you're talking about?
Yeah, the one.
Oh, okay.
I said it wrong.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wow,
Okay.
great deal.
Our full-time
Yes.
FTE is the hub.
It's a lot of coordination of all these volunteers and folks that are involved. Okay.
Clarification. Do we know whether any other counties are looking at going to zero, as we're not the only one likely facing a budget crunch? Do we know that?
For the most part, I would say, on the public facing side, we're having to curve on budgets. Large counties with 4 commissioners or council members usually have a committee process that goes through that's more draft form, not so public. And then the smaller counties. Not at least publicly.
And then the contract, it's a yearly.
Correct.
So it's not binding next year.
No,
correct.
We have to give notice by October 1. Okay. Change.
And then do we, to Jim's kind of historical point about, past boards have looked at this and decided to keep it in some form or fashion, do we know how the amount has fluctuated over time? I mean, did it used to be 1 million? Has it gone up and down?
Since 20.
Where are we
it's
historically?
been- In 23, we're at 551, 24, 561.
I know.
This year,
like 10 years ago,
537.
Do we have
We're less-
further back historical information is
We-
what I'm curious about.
Could access that, but I don't think we had as many staff people as we do currently for this program.
So it may
On the
be
county side,
higher.
so we may be on the higher side now than we
Yeah.
have been historically.
It's increased every year that I've been here. I agree with Commissioner Cuny. I think it's confusing to have two different buckets. I think it would be most helpful for the commissioner to decide how much are you willing to provide in funding, if at all, to WSU Extension. That is your contract. You manage the entirety of it. We don't have employees. You don't, I mean, and differently from yours, it's here is the funds you can provide. You go tell us what you're going to do with those.
And then
Just a second. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Mr. Jordan. French, and I gotta go.
I was just gonna say, I would always like more information as well, so I'm happy to hear a report back. I was.
Meet with him at 4 o'clock
Okay,
today.
great. I was just gonna throw out kind of half as an alternative, you know, we have a 0 on the table, we have a kind of almost like a 40%. As a kind of tentative placeholder, knowing that we still are gonna be evaluating as we go, so that's just another idea. Sure, French.
So in a tight budget environment, you start to go to fund those things that you have to do statutorily. And then if you got any extra money, you go to the things that you want to do. This is a want. This is not a have to. We're not statutorily required to contribute anything to this program. Yes, it's got some volunteers associated with it. Yes, it provides a service, but it's not necessarily a service the county is obligated to provide. We have partnered with them in the past, but that was because we had money available. Now we don't have money available. So the question will be, do you fund this? Or do you keep sheriff deputies on the street? Do you keep our courts fully staffed? What is it that you're willing to give up for this program? And so that becomes the question that we're ultimately going to end up having to ask and answer. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know, this is not something we're statutorily required to do.
Yeah, as I'm looking at a website here, I mean, we're looking at forestry resources, Firewise, community forestry, farms and food resources, livestock land, biofarming, farm smart, you got educational resources, backyard conservation, you got outdoor explorer packs, you got parent teacher resources here. I'm not reading from the WSU Extension website. These are things from the Spokane Conservation District. A lot of what they do is very similar to what WSU Extension is offering through things like these Master Gardener programs, through these conservation efforts. So we've got two organizations that are offering, I mean, I'm not saying the exact same, but very, very similar things. Conservation District has a funding source from the residents of Spokane County already. That's an assessment on their property. I think it's $10 per parcel that they already get. So I mean, we're funding very similar, or our citizens are funding very similar programs through two different organizations. So I'd like to ask, so Commissioner Waldrop, when you meet with the individual, ask him, you know, how do you differ from what the conservation district
Partnership that could.
or
develop there, yeah.
we're already funding what we're funding here. So, but I'd love to know what his answer is. How do you differ from the programs that the conservation district offers? So, and maybe that's a question we ask Vicky too, to Vicky Carter, and say, hey, you know, what is it you're doing that they're not, or what is it they're doing that you're not? And, you know, so it just seems there's already an organization here that has a footprint, has a sustainable revenue source that doesn't come out of our general fund that could provide these programs.
And
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna go and then I'll let you go. So Amber, would you ask Mark to?
So it's actually Mike Gaffney.
Is that Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it's okay.
I always get this.
There must be another Mark Gaffney somewhere.
Yeah, so if you could ask him too, how many counties are really funding? So I think the number has gone down over time. So I'd like to know that answer as well. And I agree. I mean, it's like, how does it compare to what the conservation district is already doing? Jake, good thing. So,
I was gonna add a question for you about 4-H. does that have other funding sources as well? Like what role does the county dollar play in that program? Has a big impact on kids, youth, so just, I think that'll all help us kind of understand what is the role of our dollars on all of those pieces.
Well, and I mean, I will be the first one to it. I do not know the inner workings of 4-H, but they're like any other kind of youth program. I mean, but I mean, correct? I mean, it's a membership, you sign up. I mean, similar to, scouting or, it's an extracurricular type of activity. I mean, but if the county funding went away, that organization doesn't dissolve, does it? Yeah, so I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a good question. I'd like to know. But I mean, I would assume it would be similar to the way youth sports, scouting, any of those types of youth programming work. They're not, I mean, if there's sponsorships there, which I mean, I guess I would assume the county dollars would kind of operate like a sponsorship would for those programs. But if the sponsorship goes away, the whole program doesn't dissolve and cease to exist, though.
No. And do remember, we're starting a conversation with these groups. We're sending them a letter with a point in time. This is what we're thinking. We're not saying you're going to get at least that much. We're setting the tone that you're probably not going to get more than that unless you come back and really make a strong case. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, just a bunch of reality here, but it would, we're giving them a sense of what we're thinking. And then, as more information comes with your conversation, Commissioner Waldrop, if they, request to come back, we can always hear them. But I would love to have at least a ballpark number to get a letter out to them. Hearing a roughly 265, a 303, 2 zeros. You want to throw anything in the ring for us?
I mean, I think you can say it's, there's cuts that are gonna be made and it's gonna be, we don't have to go have to.
0 to
but
50%.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
Give us a range, give a range.
Do we start and say we're looking at a roughly a 50%?
Is 0 to 50%.
0 to 50%.
Somewhere, somewhere between
Zero.
0 with probably a maximum of 50%.
Yeah.
Contract that we signed in 2023 is a professional services contract, and our portion is to provide budget to carry out the program, including secretary and support staff. It can be modified by mutual agreement at any time, or termination notice needs to go out by October.
So, yeah, I think give them, it's gonna be 0 to 50%.
So we'll go with that one, 0 to 50%, and make sure they're aware to reach out with any other information.
And hopefully Commissioner Walter will have better success than we have, because I know I had asked Pat to get the same information that's being requested multiple times from the WSU. What are other counties contributing by county? How are those dollars being utilized? And have not been successful getting that, so hopefully we can.
Well, I'm
Good
typing up,
luck.
typing up these questions so that he knows what I'm gonna ask.
Yes, partly, it's gonna use the right person and Mark Gaffney. As like the entire.
Yeah,
program,
that's
so.
a sheet.
So
With
we'll be-
with a regional person.
So Mark is the state person.
Oh, statewide.
Yeah, or
I was presumed the people she talked to knew who to talk to get the information. But it's presumptuous.
So 268.5, somewhere between 0 and 268.5, which is our half number. We'll look forward to getting more information back from Commissioner Walter's conversation. We will see what we might be able to round up. Once we learn what you've learned, if there's more information to gather, we can start trying to track.
Do you
that
wanna
down.
join the Teams meeting with me?
I
4
can't.
o'clock today?
I don't have anything that late, so I said probably not.
Okay. And I'll include you if you can make it. Or that's better.
As long as my bosses complete their 2 PM meeting by 4, I will be available.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
Thanks, I have a 4 o'clock.
We have a couple executive session items after the 2 o'clock today.
That's why I said
About 40
4.
minutes, so.
So,
You, let us know how it turns out. Board willing.
Or decision making.
so
We don't
then,
have any proclamations and we don't have any. public-
No, we do have the one miscellaneous item.
Just with this.
Yes, but we don't have any.
Should be quick.
May not be
I granted
10
it was
minutes.
12 minutes. Saying.
so
I'm gonna say grief. Wasn't here for both 12 minutes.
There you go.
Let's do too much.
But I was here last week.
2 weeks ago. I set a record. Guinness has already reached out.
We were hoping to do one executive session today.
yeah, we will, we'll make sure we're done in time. So moving up back to the health district. So you'll see in the middle of the page, 2,071,000. We're really only talking the general support, the TV is required. We will do what we have to do there. Last week, the conversation was somewhere between a 500 or a $1 million cut. Those were the bookends. By way of their handout, since 2020. Figuring the 2020 budget was done before COVID hit. Between 2020 and 2025, their communication budget increased just over 750,000. 475 to 1.23 million. And the health equity went from 40,000 in 22 after they hired a program manager up to 530,000. 23 might be the full-time program manager, so kind of double 278 to 528. So there's about 950,000. Those two categories. That is COVID. There was also the other list of stuff they went through. Her analogy of the platters from paper to crystal. I felt they were being very open to working with us, considering realities. So I think that's my memory jogging. What, so
Did you, sorry, the number on here,
It's
you mean,
incorrect.
yeah, you meant 1 million to 1.5 million.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you. So
we got the zero in the wrong spot.
so
Jeff, can you remind me what percentage of our last year's $2 million contribution?
last year, they had a $56 million budget. If we applied the 7% expenditure cut that we're talking about generally, that'd be a $4 million cut. So I'm gonna say 2 million is roughly 3.5% of their overall budget.
Yeah, but part of what this 2 million does is provides the funding that can't go against grants. They're primarily grant funded. So it's a different animal that way from a budget perspective. So, I mean, I'm happy with that $50 cut.
The state's cuts weren't as deep, I don't think as anybody expected, but the Fed is an unknown at this point.
I threw out $1 million last week and I'll stick with that.
So are you asking that we give them guidance to prepare something that at a lower level?
It would,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be,
What else I need to see, letters, we wanna have explicit numbers in there so they know what the direction is from the board.
last year when we had the generic, we need to cut, please help us. I'd say it was universally ignored.
One group proposed a reduction. I believe that was,
Chase you.
yes, from 40 down to 37. They've
So,
anticipated.
yay, CSU. And so this year we do want to put in numbers again until you take your final vote. The first Monday, Tuesday in December, everything is open for change. But because we are talking significant reductions on some of these, we feel it's only fair to give at least a heads up of where you're going, because they're also in the whole budget conversations, I'm sure, at least to try to.
The reason I would support going back and asking them to reduce by 500. And the reason I wouldn't go farther is that I just don't know what's gonna happen with the feds later this year. I mean, currently in the House, I think the bill that passed out of the House is at the Senate would cut a lot of the CDC funding. And I remember when I asked a couple months ago, I mean, yes, they're grant programs, but they do work that we may think is important, like preventing the spread of HIV/AIDS. So anyway, I don't know what that's gonna bring us.
Probably honestly won't know this calendar year, I guess. I guess it'll be December or January before we have a budget from the feds. We'll have some good ideas. But it could end up again with just a CR too.
Yeah, I know.
Who knows?
Yeah, oh, sorry,
Commissioner French.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead.
please.
Go ahead. No, please. Youth before beauty.
You've been waiting.
Walked into it.
Just saying.
No, it's obviously we're in a terrible position. Decisions that you wouldn't want to make if you didn't have to. I think 500 is a good starting point, reflecting some of the growth they've seen in their communications budget over the past few years, which I think they were very honest about. That's the primo level service, and it's important to have robust communications around public health, but I think that I felt from the presentation that they can still do adequate communication within the reduced dollar amount, especially, the director said that some of their staff have expertise, so it's good to have specialized communication people, right? But there's some that the actual program staff can do as well, so. Knowing that no decision's final until the final vote, I would suggest that's a good starting point.
And I think the letter could be up to $1 million, but. I think they need to be thinking about what it would be.
Is there support for us to have them just include the full range in that letter? And then they can communicate as they wish, and then when it gets down to the closing sausage making,
And I think they need to be aware that, that's where $1 million cut is on the table. And a $500,000 cut is gonna be probably the minimum. So. But I think they've got to start to think and justify why. They need to keep. So, Commissioner French.
Yeah, if we're setting targets, I think the $1 million is a target. And then have them come back and say, why not? And identify, okay, if we go to $1 million, here's what we're going to lose. And then the board can make a value judgment as to what we're willing to sacrifice and what we're not willing to sacrifice. But I agree with Commissioner Cooney and Commissioner Kearns. I think, setting $1 million as the target is not a bad place to start.
And giving that range, but it's gonna
Yeah.
be, it's
They're
gonna be
making
$1
without
million,
range.
$500,000 for sure. So, but potentially up to $1 million,
let them know $500,000, expect that for sure, could be up to $1 million
yes.
as our budget comes together.
Like that too, because we may find that they can easily reduce $1 million by only giving them 500,000. They can do $1 million without paying. But if they can't, then it gives them a range to be able to consider.
Can they use, this is just my ignorance, but can they use the state foundational dollars for the matching as well?
Some of it, there's some money
Lots of
that
rules
they
and strict-
can, but a lot of the new. Foundational public health dollars that came down had specific purposes in the state out of it, so there isn't. So we're the most flexible dollars for them.
That double-sided spreadsheet she gave you, would show, you'd be able to look at those dollars and see. I agree they're not as flexible as ours, but I think they're the next best, so to speak, in flexibility.
Right, you might be able to use some of them for certain buckets of administration, but not every type of administration or overhead cost. Yeah.
If this table understands funding rating. So we have that one, that moves us up to GSI. The range we discussed last week was 113 at the bottom, represented the 53 for the visionary. And 60, they threw out 50 to 60,000 will be needed for the ADO match. The Valley and Liberty Lake also provide some funds that can be used that way. But that was the makeup of the 113. And then we also talked about a 175. Starting a possible 2-year step down to 25 this year, and then if we're still in the same crunch next year, we're at 25 next year. We want to solidify on a more specific number. Do a range same like we do doing with the others.
I have some additional detail. I did visit with John Holman from the Valley. He indicated that they are contributing about 40,000 if memory serves me, and it's towards the ADO match. So just some additional context to that.
I believe they said Liberty Lake was 20th.
About 40-ish, yeah, as I recall. That was last year. Can't speak for sure.
I mean, at this point, I'd say it'd be the same letter that this is what the commissioners are looking at. Here's the, justify. At the 175 versus the 113.
It's kind of like this, look at least a 25 to the difference between one and the other. You good with that as a starting point for that other than?
Yeah, there's some logic to the 113 number.
And we'd explain
makes
that.
some sense,
We'll
but
put that in the letter.
if we give them that range, it gives them the opportunity to articulate the additional value that we can then make a final decision about. And obviously keeping in mind that if that value is economic development, it's gonna be good for generating tax revenue. So but they need to be the ones to make a clear case for that. So that would give them the chance to do so. And it was good information that they gave. I didn't feel that maybe they were as prepared specifically as they could have been if they received a letter with a specific number. So I think a range is a
Elk
good
District
place
came
to be.
in.
Yeah.
So with the letter, I guess that begs another question. Do we offer each of them the opportunity to come back to the board in this format? Would you rather speak to them individually?
I think
Do we stay silent if they ask? Come back to the board? Okay, just throw that out.
I think otherwise,
I prefer.
everyone's getting different information and it needs to be the same information.
But if they wanted to provide something in writing with some numbers beforehand, that's always helpful.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
We'll work out some kind of a justifications sheet
Yeah,
similar.
if they wanna put something in writing, they don't have to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like this,
If you
this
provide
dollar amount,
information
provide
or-
X, Y, and Z, this is why it's important to make the case.
Some of them, I mean, potentially, I mean, they know what our budget looks like. They may see that low end number and think, that's better than we thought we'd do. We'll take it. Sold.
Deal.
Yeah, deal. Yeah, I mean, we don't know, maybe. So.
And then at the very top, Commissioner French, let me know. Spokane Clean Air is looking at about a 7.6 reduction. You want to speak any more on that one?
Yeah, so following the recommendation of the board, I do go back to our staff and had them identify economies of scale that we can take advantage of and or use of reserves to lower the assessment to both the assessment goes to not only the county, but all the jurisdictions throughout the county and stuff. So this is actually a hit of probably a little over $100 some thousand to the Clean Air Agency. So, but with the what we've asked other departments is 7%, and so we hit 7.62%. And because we operate on a fiscal year, not a calendar year, our budget was adopted last Thursday.
Are you like the state then, June 30 to June 30?
Yeah.
So it is a reduction next year for
Yep.
the next.
Yep.
And that work that you guys are doing, Commissioner French, also benefits not only the county, but it benefits other jurisdictions you participate in.
Jurisdiction,
So
yeah. I think to the county, it's like 27,000. I'm going from memory, so, but it's around the 27,000.
I didn't realize you already passed the budget, so we'll touch base with them and get that number.
Yeah,
So we can plug it in just for you guys'.
Yeah, so, you know, the Clean Air Agency works on a budget that has state and federal mandates with regard to fees and fines for different segments of services that we provide. And then we have a general fund. And so we can't adjust the fees and fines without going through an extensive public outreach effort and working with the state and the feds, but we can reduce our general fund. And that's where we took all of the hits out in the general fund.
Thank you for helping with that. And I think that leaves the last one we haven't is the AGC. There's another economic development one, getting people into construction industry. We've been at 25,000 for some point, you know. How about
We've been at 25,000 since the start. So it's not just getting people into construction, it's actually helping provide people that are coming out of jail skills, so they are not committing. Yes, yeah, so.
Sorry, I'm just coming in, but I don't see that really helps us much on the savings end, and I would imagine I don't have the research to show that it pays for itself, frankly, in helping people develop those skills and get into those jobs and pay taxes and not be a drain on the systems that we have. So I just don't see a reason to worry too much about that personally.
I would say, I think if we had, well, Mike Sparber, you're here. On that with the recidivism, the people that go through the program are much less likely to be back into our system. I know a couple of years ago, we were hoping to increase it, but we didn't increase it. But we put this out to Geiger pre-COVID, but I mean, they're still working with people that are coming out of the systems that are not going back in.
To the extent that we can.
2 at 25? Anybody else? Always count to 3. I'm at home, I have 4 kids.
You're not holding at 25 for AGC?
That's fine.
Yeah. We don't spend it here, we're gonna spend it housing them in the jail. And I'd rather spend it on educating them and getting them out of the jail than to perpetuate it being in jail.
Perfect, so. I promise to not bring that back to you for at least 15 days.
Oh, I was gonna give you a month or two.
I was gonna say a couple of months, but like I don't wanna box myself in.
Bring it back, we'll need the dog.
Sorry, I did give a call to Amy Vega with the Vanessa Behan Crisis Nursery about, potentially cutting the funding. So we had a good conversation. We brainstormed some different private funding options and also them using volunteers to reduce the cost of managing the children's waiting room. And so I think that I think there might be a way to keep it going with a significant amount of the juror fees as well as the private donations. And so I'd like to explore that a little bit with her and talk with the Superior Court Judge Zamblin and the public defenders and such, people who are gonna be impacted if it were to close, because they might be motivated to find ways to keep it going. I think the challenge is not wanting to communicate from the county's perspective, kind of our constraints and our challenges, and we think it's a good program, but we are being challenged to continue funding it in the same way. And so that would open up her opportunity to go look for some private dollars and, you know, look for other opportunities. So from a communication standpoint, I'm just wondering how we want to communicate it so that we could then she needs it to be communicated in a way that then she could go out and use the urgency, right, to create some different strategies around it. So I just wanted us to be owning the message on the potential closure, because that would then motivate people to get engaged. If we don't talk about it, nobody knows and then they can't help. But so just wondering how we might be able to manage that communication. So I see Pat's here too.
And one of the things I think you talked to her about is the idea of law firms.
Right.
Might be looking for some charitable giving, and obviously have a vested interest in the system. And so I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, that was her idea. I thought, oh, that's a great idea. Because they want their clients to go to court, be able to keep their court dates, so.
And
Which is
maybe
good for us too.
along those lines, we could, if the commissioners wanted to say, hey, the county's willing to continue to have a space available for you if you're able to find other. So that's kind of the leaning in. We don't have the funding to continue the direct support, but we could provide the facility, the space for you to continue.
Commissioner Waldron was talking to us about that, just in the budget office recently. We think we could frame a letter along that line that at this point, we don't think we have funding available. We can provide space. And, you know, throw out some of those ideas, hopefully for some private partnerships. And but giving them, like you said, that call to action to see if, you know, whether it's law firms or foundations or just people in their giving for whatever reason, want to support that, we can maybe put together a partnership plan.
And then one final thing on outside agencies, aging and long-term care. I can't remember, Commissioner Jordan, when they adopt their budget. Is it later in the year?
Yes.
We have it. Okay.
It's required by the ILA, and it's specifically for federal matching, I believe.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure there's no ability to wiggle there.
If I recall, it's a set amount and it's broken up proportionally by population, correct? Yeah.
So we should probably expect a slight increase there, but I think the last couple of years been 1,800 and 2,500.
I will just double check on that.
That was the only outstanding one I think we had unfilled on here.
And to our budget vote, if you go back, you'll actually see it used to be nearly twice that much, but that was before the Spokane Valley joined. And that dropped our amount by about half, so.
So back to the Vanessa, so you think writing the letter, then that kind of signals, and that letter could then
Yeah, to
be
me,
used to bring together some folks around other.
call to action.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we have the space, we're more than happy to let people use the space. You can come up with the M&O, but and see what they come back with, then go from there.
Because for her to be able to go and like kind of rally folks around it, she kind of needs to know that it's like happening. So the letter idea was kind of what we thought, just put that in the letter, like, hey, we still have the space, you know, we're still wanting to partner, but these are the challenges. And because we still have, because if she can cut the cost in half with just one plus some substitutes as needed, FTE, we still have half that cost potentially from the juror fees anyway. So we really just maybe need to raise about 50,000. So anyway,
I think law firms, to me, be a natural charitable connection with law firms. So we'll have more specific letters, less plug and play. But I think it'll be worth the extra time it takes to massage some of these letters pre this conversation. So then the letter we just passed out would be for Delaware from outside to inside. So this is the letter you guys have looked at a couple times. Pat and his team put some nice touches on it. That we would go to our internal groups. Scott and Commissioner Kearney have also cut a video of the communications team just to add the human touch to the letter. Sometimes when we're reading something that isn't what we prefer to read, we can include some tone in all caps, as we say, in the text and email world that wasn't meant to be there. So we thought by having a video message that goes with it, try to communicate more effectively. So this would go out with a video, and then at the top of page 2, where you see your target budget will be XXXXX. The other handout, the general fund list, would be the dollar amounts that we plug into the XXX. And if there's not questions on the letter, we do all the ones you see highlighted in bold are things that have a bit of a story that we will talk through with you. The ones that are not highlighted are status quo from 2025. So that is the flat budget. If everybody were able to come in and meet that budget, your gap is close to closed. But we all know reality. So at the top, this is when we've done a name change. What we've historically for the last several years called executive management. We were going to change to administrative services. As I mentioned at the top of our time here, Melanie Dickinson is leaving the purchasing director position because of our budget situation. We are going to see how we can do without replacing that position. The buyer side of her role is going to go into grants with Heather Arnold. The PMOs, Frank and Ken and Rose on the ERP will go under Tessa in the budget side, as long as our 2 people who keep the mail moving around the campus. But historically, grants has been included in executive, purchasing's had their own line. So with them being combined, we were like, do we have a grants and purchasing line? And we got the talking, executive management really is more the administrative behind the scenes stuff. So what this would do would roll purchasing up into the executive management, which also includes the CEO's office, the grants team, the budget team, the communications team, and historically it had the community affairs position. That went away last year due to some budget constraints. So that would come together under the new title administrative services. So we rolled up the historical 24 and 25 purchasing into it. So you're comparing apples to apples on that line now. Any thoughts, concerns, dislike of our idea? Hearing none. Cooperative extension, we just left blank because we needed to have an earlier conversation. So we'll plug in, I think, the 268.5 as the top, as the kind of a maximum that we're thinking right now. When we get to the bottom, it will raise the 830 in red to right at $1 million.
198.
But then you've got outside agencies, the same amount.
Yeah, we'll have a new outside agency to plug in.
Offset.
So DEM, the city of Spokane used to provide, well, in this year, for most recent year, 192,000 a year. They have sent over.
One more time?
The city used to join with the county. in
Yeah,
emergency
did you say
management.
192?
192,000 was their contribution at the most recent level. They are taking their money to do a city thing separate from the county. So at this point, we reduced the 728 by the 192.
So when will they be pulling their stuff out of our DEM?
Are they're already out. They don't even, I don't
Are
think
they
they
already out
participated
now?
this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
We
think they
had
participated
a
this year.
miscommunication on that, and so we planned for that revenue in this year's budget, and we're trying to rectify that going into next year's budget.
Okay, all right.
But I don't believe our staffing at DEM has changed as a result of the city leaving. Is that a correct statement, Ashley?
Not at the result of this.
So this percentage wise, that is big. And like a lot of our agencies, they're probably 90% plus staff. So I specifically want to ask, is that the number you want us to use? The other option is to spend in the general fund, like that is the other option at this point.
What are you asking?
Do you want us to use a target budget of 536, which would be 192,000 less?
Without the city contributing.
That's what we were thinking, but
That's what we're getting.
when we're talking 25% of their budget,
They've got to figure it out.
that's where we were. We just wanted to make sure we weren't.
So- Can I ask, what did the 192 go to fund when we received it?
Our staffing.
All the staffing.
All the city, so
Because
that,
I mean, it was.
okay, so there were not any specific city people being funded, those dollars were just used to fund the, okay, understood.
I mean, the city has hired, I
Okay.
believe, their own person who does DEM. Chandra has shared her opinions with me on this, but it's out of all of our control.
Okay,
in
so,
this room.
so it's not a situation where they take their 192 and one or two staff members with them to fund, okay, got it.
So this is one, I will expect Chandra to request chance to come and speak to this, which makes total sense.
So, we are required to have a countywide emergency response program. And the city, I thought, in asking for somebody to correct or verify this, was part of that emergency response program. But that was under the impression or the relationship that we were sharing facilities and we were operating as a single unit. If we're not, then the city needs to develop its own emergency response program to be consistent with, I think it's federal standards, but it might be state with regard to emergency response programs. Every county is supposed to have a plan. And if the plan is changed, then they need to adopt their own and we need to modify ours.
I'm very confident Chandra's up on all this.
Okay.
So I think we should probably just schedule her
Okay.
to come in and answer those questions. 'Cause I don't think either of us.
Yeah, because I don't remember seeing any kind of revision to the plan.
Sheriff, have the sheriff.
She is, DEM is currently embedded in the sheriff's domain, so to speak. It's separate from
You
the
have a
sheriff
separate
budget,
budget line.
but it's a separate budget line, but she does report to the sheriff. So it
As
doesn't
of
affect
like 2020, right?
Yeah.
Is that when we made that change?
So I will invite both Chandra and the sheriff to come in, and I think this is one we're gonna have to talk through with them in the room.
Yes.
Okay.
So then the next one down, Law and Justice, this is Mike Sparber's, just his immediate team. He has reduced from 3 FTEs to 2 FTEs. It's a reduction in force, just as a way to save budget. So what this one is we put in his inflationary factors for next year. To the budget, and then the rest of it is the savings from having one less person in the 26 budget. So in sense, because he's been part of all this, he's already done his budget solves before the letter goes out. And this is his number, obviously much greater than 7%. But when you're in an office of 3 people and your overhead budget is $12,000, there's not really.
One of the questions I have on this sheet then is the target is the same as the 25 that we're asking for a 7% reduction?
Well, in order to hit last year's budget, once COLAs and steps are applied, the salaries are gonna go up by on average 7%. So for you to keep your budget, for example, for animal control, second from the top, to stay at 4.4 billion. And if their salaries go up by 7%, they're gonna have to cut to stay at 4.4, either from M&O.
Right, so
or
are
staff.
you providing that information for them that this, with salary increases, your budget is going to be
We've
this?
gone over it multiple times with them. That's why we have the board scheduled the next elected official department head meeting. To say it again, we spent at least 2, if not 2.5 hours last leader up with the department heads.
This 26 budget includes, is their target that they have to include?
They have to absorb the inflationary increases in it. That is the hard part. That is the nut to solve on.
We've got that specifically called out in the letter to articulate what may not be inherently understood just by seeing the number. They called that out, it's the top bullet of the second page.
And then we're almost, then we'll just skip the rest and go to exact.
But I got Pat to talk for 5 minutes.
Prosecuting attorneys really quick, we just pulled out family law. It's 100% grant backed. And so including it in our general fund just is not the correct way accounting wise. So we took historically out and moving forward, it's fed and state grant back. So this is just true to their general fund numbers. The sheriff, to us, it made sense to remove their revenue neutral units when they do the extra work that is 100% bad, extra duty, other stuff like that. And in Spokane Valley, they go to 160 million. We don't care as long as they pay us for it. So we thought it'd make more sense to divide the sheriff, the county portion, because that's really the part we're talking about. The valley, I think everybody just likes to see because it is a big chunk, and then the other revenue backed. So we are thinking of dividing them that way just for better clarity and apples to apples conversations. Does that make sense to everybody around the table?
Yeah, that's fine. One of the things I'm concerned about is Council for Defense and Public Defense. I've highlighted both those because of the information we're getting of the caseload standards are gonna take effect January 1, 26.
That'll be top of the list at our next meeting, because that's gonna be a bigger hole to work through.
And then detention services, does that include the new medical contract?
Well,
Well, do we?
detention services is flat with their budget from last year. Yeah, if the commissioners recall, the addition to their budget, to their healthcare, you had added another $500,000 to go from 10 million to 10.5. And our estimated cost, if they were fully staffed, were in the $15 million range. So going into this year, we already have, if they were fully staffed, a $5 million delta. If NAFCA was fully staffed and we were staffed at level absent our vacancy adjustment. So we already have a $5 million challenge in this current budget. Now, they're not fully staffed. We're going to get credits back, but we don't know what that's going to be at the end of the year. So there will have to be structural changes within detention services, including evaluation of of multiple facilities versus single facility in order to meet that number. And that's exactly what Mike's working with them is what are the things that will have to go away in order to stay within that budget number.
Okay.
I'd say Sparber's ahead of the curve on.
Yes.
He's been talking for weeks with his teams on budget realities.
No, I just wanted to just make sure that we can talk about it. Okay.
So that's the place we can stop then.
Yes.
So you guys take the rest of your agenda.
Pat needs to go.
Okay.
So Ms.
Just
Lydia?
briefly, for your awareness, this was emailed to you as well. This is the fact sheet for the APA measure, so open to any feedback on this. I just want to give you all an update on where we are with materials. In case you're hearing from folks or you're planning to bring it up in any meetings you already got scheduled. We have a fact sheet. It still needs to be reviewed by all of our partners. I'm waiting to hear back from Millwood, so we can include their logo. So we just need one, and then we'll have all 5.
So just one?
There's just one, yes, just the fact sheet.
Okay. I'm taking extra because I've got a presentation of one of the neighborhood councils tonight.
Okay.
And I can distribute it tonight.
Right, right, yeah, I think this one's ready for prime time. We'll add the Millwood logo when we get it. The URL is what this little code up in the corner is for. That is a website. Sharissa is furiously working in the background to make some updates there. In addition to this, you'll recall, the board will that we discussed having a utility insert. We have one tonight. It's been to legal review. We need to make a couple of changes to a few sentences, and that'll be reflected across all of our materials. Emotionally provocative words like necessary will be excluded. Anything that could really get an emotional reaction from people. So this is the main item for discussion. We're also working on the mailing, the mailer, and we did get some costs, some good news on the cost. Several of the jurisdictions.
That emailed it out today. Zach, guys, what's the QR code take you to?
The QR code takes you to the website for the APA.
Got it.
And you'll recognize the information.
I'll send you a bill for that later.
The mail piece is due to the printer by the middle of the month, so we'll need quick turnaround on that. Probably next week's meeting. I'll bring it to you all for review and approval. If you have any questions, again, it'll be very straightforward, all educational content. Why it needs to be renewed in terms of the deadlines that are coming up, what it funds, who's involved, what do I pay? Those kind of questions. So that's the big stuff on the APA. Any questions there or any comments? If I could get any comments from you on this by tomorrow, that would be great. I know several of you provided comments on the first draft. This is just the design of the text we've already worked on. And I'll make sure that all the pieces are moving.
Is this gonna be, is this on the ballot listed as measure 1? Again, is that what it is?
I believe it is technically measure 1 because
This year, that's what it, I am just quickly scanning. I don't know if I see that anymore on here.
Okay.
Maybe just letting folks know.
Yeah, I
APA
think
is
I think we just
measure,
call it
measure
measure,
one.
yeah.
but yeah, it says
Yep.
ballot measure, just
We
make
can
ballot
change that.
measure 1.
Easy peasy.
Okay.
Sure one. So we will be working on an educational video. It'll be just like the videos we've created in the past. I think we'll have that in lieu of any kind of PowerPoint. So if you're going to a meeting, you want to show something on this, you can have the fact sheet and a video to show in lieu of trying to click through a PowerPoint. But that's the big stuff. The partners have all been communicative. And the cost of the mailing, we're working out. The city of Spokane has some other tools at its disposal, including a very large email list. They also are planning a utility insert. We're in conversations about with them whether they would like to participate in mailing or not. If they don't, we'll just subtract that number of constituents. It'll bring the cost of the mailing down considerably from about 75,000 to about 50,000. But it's really on the cities whether they want to participate or see the value in that. I don't know what their end approach will be, but we've offered it to them, and they've certainly been willing to participate on all other aspects, including pointing everybody to our materials, our website, and providing feedback. So it's been a really good start so far.
At one point in time, I had a general conversation with the auditor about the naming of ballot measures. And I think there was a possible ability to change the practice so that it's measure one, and then the next one's measure two, and the next one's measure three. So that they're differentiated from each other, maybe in the public's mind. There was some wrinkles to that I don't remember off the top of my head. There was pros and cons to it. But as I recall, and I might be wrong, I think it's kind of up to the auditor to make that call. Does the board want me to check back in and find out whether that is something that could be changed on a shorter time frame or not? I'm happy to reach out and report back quickly if that's something people are interested in. Seems to me that if it's cleaner to change the number every time so people don't get confused, but that's just my own personal opinion. I would imagine from a communications perspective, it'd be better to differentiate things.
I think so with people searching for information, and if they're typing in the measure number and they get controversy from past measures 10, 5, 7 years ago, I think it is cleaner if it's not a big administrative burden. I would recommend it, but defer to you all what you think.
I think there'd be a benefit to change. I mean, some states and, I mean, well, actually Washington State, the numbers just continue. They don't start over. I mean, I don't know why at a local level, we don't do the same thing. We just keep going up. I mean, cause yeah, you're right.
We're thousands.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I guess I don't know why we don't do that on the local level too.
You said no.
Well, yes.
So she's willing to change.
Because we even tried measure A one time. We're like, could you let us do, instead of numbers, can we do the alphabet measure A? And she's like, no. It's like, why? Because we don't do that.
Yeah, there was some technicalities that I don't recall, but if hearing that feedback, I'm happy to reach out and report back next week if that's even possible. Sure. All right.
Yeah, a couple other quick things just on the media front. I'll be brief. We had great coverage on the helicopter event, so thanks for all who were able to be there or who shared that. I think it's really helpful to the sheriff's office. It was a big lift for our team, so kudos to the team for putting it all together. We saved a lot on cost. The fairgrounds was excellent on getting us tables and chairs. Just required a lot of schlepping stuff around. Still some items to return like candlesticks to Public Works. We had a couple of media requests this week that I think are outstanding for you and Scott on some media interest around Becca and the conversations that happen at the board level. I know we've all been talking about the budget, and there will be continued interest, especially with the letter coming out from, I anticipate, from the media and from the public about the budget. People hearing information for the first time.
We have a CRR for the budget letter.
Yes.
It's not even done yet.
And so just a reminder, feel free if you get questions on it, if we need to develop talking points, make sure to be directing those to me for assistance, and we'll handle it between the chair, the spokeswoman, and the budget office, Scott. The other media request we got in was about sheltering this week with inclement weather, and so we answered that one. Emery's story was in today's paper. It's about the city and the county's plan for inclement weather. So I'm in communication with George on some of the outstanding questions there, but we weren't able to answer all the questions by deadline. So that's the main stuff from the media front.
And I did get a call from Nick Gibson last night in relation to Becca, but mostly on budget related stuff. So I filled him in on a lot of the things that we've been talking with the commissioners. Our budget, projected budget shortfall, I said, re-emphasized, we do not have a deficit today. That's not what we're dealing with in 25. This is for 26. That's why the commissioners are working early and urgently on it. So I walked through a lot of the kind of what's led to 20 million, talked about some revenue forecasts, some of the challenges we're seeing in sales tax, other things, and increases that we see annually on expenditures. So I anticipate, I think he's going to write something maybe the next couple days on that.
So, we go through this every year that I've been here. Every single year, we start out and everybody wants and gives us a list of their wants, and we go through and cut back to what we need, and develop a balanced budget. We haven't been out of balance. We can't be out of balance because it's state law. But if you could impress upon Nick that this is part of the process that we go through every single year. I mean, I don't think we've had a year where we haven't had some kind of scrutiny over, you know, the wants and the asks. So it would be nice if, you know, oh dear God, my hair's on fire. No, it's not, you know, this is just part of the job. It's part of the routine. So it'd be nice if that could be part of the message.
You know, you've sort of been doing this longer than I have in this role. I think what's magnifying it is the size of the entering into our budget process. The size of the gap is probably highlighting more of a whoa. Yes, they don't necessarily track as closely as you all do on the sausage making and all the internal processes and the fact that we have to deliver a balanced budget, and that's what we will get to.
But
we try to.
I mean, so Jeff, Tessa, how much money are we projected to bring in 25, and how much are we projecting we're gonna bring in 26?
Right at the bottom of your.
Well, it's projected revenue here is the.
The 263, the 830 is the delta between those two numbers.
Yep.
But when we plug in the 268 for WSU, right now we're out of balance by just over $1 million. But that is if every department meets their cuts to stay flat.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Well, the intention of this letter is the commissioners are giving guidance. This is what you must meet.
That's easier said than done.
Yes.
That's reality.
Right. And what we don't know is what the personnel impact may be.
Exactly.
Of those budget targets.
Exactly.
That's why we're getting the letter out so they can come back and share that with the board. And then you guys will make decisions accordingly.
I guess, so with Jason coming in monthly with sales taxes bouncing around.
We'll see him next week.
What's your best guess on how much we're going revenue across that we're
As
bringing in
of,
25?
spoiler alert, plug your ears if you don't want to hear next Mondays.
I just want to know total no,
We're up
262
We're up
next year.
1.9% over
Okay.
last year. If you were to annualize it out year to date, so that'd be through April received. But that is a gain of about 1.2 million. Last year, we spent 2 million of fund balance to solve the budget. So we need to bring in an additional 800,000 to start at a zero. Otherwise, we're starting with some reserve being spent. So at this point, we are bringing in more than last year, not quite enough to make up last year's deficit spending of 2 million. So, but overall, it's better than going backwards, it's.
Well, I think that's a strong part of this. When we talk about, a $20 million shortfall, a $20 million, we're not bringing in less money. It is just
Expenses are going up.
the
not to the-
expensive, yes, and I think that is important. Because I think it's important that the community knows we're not seeing a reduction in what's coming in. It is the spending, it is the asks from the department. It is, it's the cost essentially of doing business is what's going up. We are not going backwards as a community as far as economic development, as far as revenue generation, as far as, sales tax are, compared to other year. We are plateauing at.
Our 20-year average is 3.9, so we are about half of what our long-term average.
But still going.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, people ready to come in from the executive session? Is there anything else?
Just you guys have a squirrels agenda, so that's planned, I think, for Friday.
Say, is it on our consent agenda? Just just awareness that that's the agenda, if anyone has a problem with it. It is not. Perfect. Okay.
Carried by Commissioner CUNY, it looks good.
Okay.
We have one executive session item this morning under pending and potential litigation, RCW 4230.10. It'll take approximately 20 minutes, no final action. The board, Matt Folsom, Scott Simmons, Jeff McMorris, Devin Kurta, Pat Bell, Preston McCullum, John Knowles.
No, I'm online. So at the, we will go ahead and conclude the meeting, at this point after our executive session, which is about 20 minutes. For the purpose stated and the people that were present. So thank you all and we'll see you back at the 2 o'clock.